They bullied me for being a nerd, then my brother, a special forces soldier, stepped in asterisk. Welcome back with a new real shock story. Before we start, comment and tell me which city you're watching from. At the end, don't forget to subscribe and rate it from 0 to 10. Let's enjoy the story, everyone.
I still remember that evening like it happened yesterday. It was one of those ordinary days that felt normal until it wasn't. I was walking home after work, the sky painted in soft orange and pink, and the air was warm, just enough to make me forget how tired I was. I'd had a long day, nothing unusual, just the usual routine work, a quick stop at the corner store, then heading home. My bag felt heavy against my shoulder, but I didn't mind. That's when I noticed something. The street ahead wasn't as empty as usual. A group of kids, 3 of them, were gathered by the sidewalk, leaning against the walls and laughing. I didn't think much of it at first, thinking maybe they were just being loud teenagers. But then, I noticed they weren't laughing at anything normal. Their eyes were locked on me, and something in the way they looked it wasn't curiosity. It wasn't friendly, it was something else. Something colder. As I walked closer, I heard one of them mutter something under his breath. Then another snickered. The air suddenly felt heavier. My steps slowed without me even realizing it. My heart began to beat faster, not from fear at first, but from a strange sense of unease. I've walked this street hundreds of times. Nothing like this had ever happened before, but in that moment, something in me knew it was going to change everything. They stepped out of their little group and started moving toward me. Not casually, but with purpose. I could feel it. I wanted to turn around and walk away, but my bag was heavy and my pride was heavier. I told myself I was just imagining it, that maybe they were just messing around. But as they closed in, their laughter grew sharper, louder, more cruel. One of them stepped right in front of me. "Hey, nerd," he said, his voice dripping with mockery. The word was like a punch to my chest. I kept walking, hoping it would pass. But they surrounded me. Another shoved my shoulder, harder this time. My books slipped out of my bag and scattered across the sidewalk. I bent to grab them, but before I could, one of them kicked my bag away. I stumbled again. They laughed harder, their voices echoing through the street. I tried to ignore it, but my ears burned. My face felt hot. I could feel my breath quicken. I wanted to disappear, to vanish right there, but I couldn't. And then it happened. From somewhere behind me came footsteps. Slow. Heavy. I turned, my heart pounding. And there he was. My older brother, Jason. I knew the moment I saw him something was different. This wasn't his usual walk home from work pace. His shoulders were tense, his jaw set. He wasn't just walking. The laughter stopped instantly. The air around us changed. They noticed him too. The way they looked at him, it wasn't disrespect, it was fear. But they didn't know why yet. What's going on here? Jason's voice was calm but cold. It wasn't a question that invited an answer, it was a warning. One of them stepped forward, smirking nervously. "Just messing around," he said, but his voice cracked slightly. Jason didn't reply. He simply stepped forward, slow and controlled. Every step felt deliberate. My heart was pounding harder than ever. I could feel my legs trembling, but I couldn't move. I was frozen, not just from fear, but from knowing something huge was about to happen. Jason stopped in front of them. His eyes never left theirs. They glanced at each other nervously. Then one of them laughed again, but it was weaker, forced. Jason took another step forward, and my breath caught in my throat. He didn't speak, he didn't threaten. But somehow, the air seemed to bend to him. He looked at me for a second, a quick glance that was half warning, half promise. And then his attention snapped back to them. I didn't hear him say it, but I knew what was coming. That moment stretched long and quiet. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. My hands were shaking. My mind was racing. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. But something inside me told me to stay. Then Jason moved. The way he moved was unlike anything I'd seen before. He lunged forward, not wildly, but with precision. The leader of the group stumbled back under the force of his grab. His smirk vanished completely. The others stepped back, their laughter gone. Fear was written across their faces. Jason's voice broke the silence. "You don't know what you're messing with." It was more than a warning. It was a statement. And in that moment, I understood that this wasn't just about me getting bullied. It was about something much bigger. Something Jason had been carrying for years. The air felt thicker. My chest tightened. I watched as Jason stood there, strong, unshaken, while the group of bullies hesitated. I knew the world around us had shifted, but I had no idea how much. And then Jason stepped back. The bullies, shaken, muttered something and ran. I sank to the sidewalk, breathing hard, trying to make sense of everything. Jason came to me, put a hand on my shoulder, and didn't say a word. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My heart was still pounding. My mind replayed every second. I knew one thing for sure. Nothing would ever be the same again. Because what happened on that street wasn't just about a fight. It was the start of something I didn't yet understand. I couldn't sleep that night. My room felt heavier than usual, like the air itself was holding its breath. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces again. The smirks, the laughter, and the way Jason had stood between me and them. But deeper than that, I kept replaying his expression. Not just anger, but something colder. Something I didn't fully understand. The next morning, I woke up late, my phone buzzing endlessly with messages. Mostly from friends asking if I was okay, some with concerned emojis, others with jokes trying to lighten things. But it wasn't funny. Not to me. Not anymore. I could still feel the weight of that night pressing on my chest. At work, I couldn't concentrate. My mind kept drifting back to that moment on the street, the way the air had shifted, the way Jason had moved. I remembered his voice, low and certain, almost dangerous. I didn't ask him about it yet. I didn't want to. I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. That evening, Jason didn't come home until later than usual. When he walked through the door, I noticed something. His jacket was creased, his hands tense, and there was a hardness in his eyes I'd never seen before. He sat down at the kitchen table without a word and began eating quietly. I tried to start a conversation, but he just shook his head. Later, I overheard him talking to someone on the phone. His voice was low, clipped, and urgent. I didn't catch everything, but I heard phrases that made my skin crawl, words like target, ready, and special operation. My heart began to race. I knew Jason wasn't like other brothers, but I'd never imagined whatever this was. Days passed and I noticed changes everywhere. The way Jason moved, always alert. The way he watched people, even strangers on the street. His eyes seemed to see things I couldn't. And then there were the nights. Sometimes I'd wake up and find him gone, only to return hours later, silent and drained. One afternoon, I found him in the garage. He was cleaning something metallic, heavy, and unfamiliar. I froze, watching him work in silence. He looked up for a moment as if sensing my presence, but said nothing. The air between us grew tense. I wanted to ask, but something told me he wouldn't answer. Later that night, I confronted him. "Jason, what's going on? Why didn't you tell me anything? My voice was shaky, betraying the fear I tried to hide. He looked at me for a long moment, then quietly said, "Alec, some things aren't safe to talk about." That was all I got. No explanation. Just a stare that made my chest tighten. And then, a week later, it happened again. I was walking home, the streets quieter this time. The air felt colder, heavier. I hadn't seen them in days, but somehow I knew. I knew they were still out there. I felt it deep in my bones. As I turned a corner, I saw them, those same faces from before. They stepped out of the shadows like predators, slow and deliberate. My breath hitched. My hands trembled. I wanted to turn and run, but I froze, remembering Jason's warning look from that night. This time, they didn't laugh at first. They just stared. The silence was heavier than before. Then one of them stepped forward and said something low, something I couldn't quite catch. Before I could react, the air shifted again. Footsteps. That slow, deliberate pace. My heart stopped. I turned my head and there he was. Jason. But this time it was different. He wasn't walking. He was moving like someone who had been waiting for this exact moment. His eyes locked on the group, and I could see something in them. Something dark. They looked at each other nervously. Their confidence faltered. But Jason didn't speak. He just stepped forward. And then, everything happened so fast. The group scattered before I could even blink. My knees buckled and I collapsed against the wall. Jason was there instantly, his hand steadying me. He didn't say anything, just pulled me close. I could hear his breath fast, controlled. "You're safe now," he whispered. But the way he said it didn't sound like reassurance. It sounded like a promise. That night, I lay awake again, listening to him in the other room. I could hear him moving, whispering into his phone again. My mind was spinning. Jason wasn't just protecting me, he was preparing for something. And I didn't know if I wanted to know what it was. But deep down, I knew my life had already changed. Forever. Because whatever this thing Jason was guarding me from it was far from over. The next morning, I woke up to an empty house. Jason's side of the bed was cold, untouched. My stomach twisted. I knew he hadn't stayed home last night, but I didn't expect him to leave without saying anything. I tried to convince myself he was just dealing with work, but a knot of unease grew heavier in my chest. I went to the kitchen, hoping to find some clue. A mug still sat half full with coffee, and a faint smell of gun oil lingered in the air. Something I'd never smelled in our home before. My hand trembled as I touched it. I pulled my sweater tighter around me and walked to the garage. The door was shut. I could hear faint movement inside, like the hum of a machine, the scrape of metal. I stood there for minutes, just listening. My thoughts raced. What was he doing in there? What had he gotten himself into? I wanted to knock, to call him, but something told me it would be dangerous. So I stepped back, closed the door, and went about my day. But I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. By mid-afternoon, I was at work, trying to focus on something, anything, but my phone kept buzzing. No texts, no calls, just alerts. Notifications, all from unknown numbers. I ignored them at first. Then the messages started. One word, watch. Another, alone. Then a video, just a grainy shot of me walking home last night, taken from the shadows. My hands went cold. My breath caught in my throat. I froze. My mind screamed. Who was doing this? How did they know? That night, I didn't wait for Jason to come home. I stayed in the living room, phone clutched tight, eyes fixed on the clock. Every creak of the house made me jump. Every shadow looked like someone moving. I was terrified. But more than that, I was desperate to understand. When Jason finally came home, hours later than usual, he was different. His face was pale, his eyes sharper than ever. He didn't even look at me. He went straight to the garage and shut the door. I wanted to follow him to demand answers, but my legs felt frozen. Instead, I sat there, in the dark living room, listening. That night, I heard low voices whispered words I couldn't make out coming from the garage. It wasn't Jason alone. There were others. Men. Women. People speaking in a language I didn't recognize. My heart pounded so loud I was sure he would hear it. Then, silence. Absolute silence. That's when my phone buzzed again. A message, tomorrow, midnight, alone. I dropped it. My hands shook. I didn't know who to call, what to do. But deep down, I knew something had just crossed a line. Whatever danger Jason was trying to protect me from it wasn't just about bullies anymore. It was something much bigger. That night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the faint sound of the garage door creak again. My thoughts were racing, but one thing kept repeating in my mind tonight. Everything would change. And I was right, because at midnight, something happened that I'll never forget. The phone rang. I answered without thinking. A voice low, cold, and unfamiliar whispered my name. Alec, they know. That was it. No explanation. Just those words before the line went dead. I sat there, frozen, the phone slipping from my hands. My breath came fast. My chest felt tight. Somewhere deep inside, I knew I had just stepped into something far beyond me. Something dangerous. And Jason, he knew it too. Because when I ran to the garage, it was empty. The door was wide open. And outside there were footprints, leading into the darkness. I didn't move at first. My body felt frozen in place, my mind screaming at me to run, but my feet wouldn't obey. The garage door hung open like a wound in the side of our house, letting in the cold night air. I could hear its soft, distant breathing. Not mine. Not Jason's. Something else. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a broom, and stepped outside. The street was quiet. Too quiet. My breath came out in short, shaky bursts. The footprints, they were fresh. Deep impressions in the dirt. They led away from our house and into the shadows of the trees. I didn't think. I just followed. Something inside me, some part I didn't understand, told me I had to. Every step felt heavier. The night air seemed thicker. My heart pounded so hard it hurt, but I couldn't turn back. I followed those footprints for what felt like forever. They twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the neighborhood I thought I knew. Until I reached the park. That's where I stopped. Because there, in the middle of the deserted playground, stood Jason. But he wasn't alone. Around him, a group of people stood in silence, their faces hidden in shadow. They were quiet, almost statuesque, and the air between them was heavy. Something in their presence made my stomach knot. Jason turned toward me slowly. His eyes were sharp, his face unreadable. He took a step toward me that then stopped. The group moved, forming a kind of barrier between us. My heart raced faster. I wanted to call out to him, but the words stuck in my throat. Then one of them stepped forward. A tall man, dressed in dark clothes, his voice low and commanding. "She knows," he said. No one explained what he meant. They just stared at me, and my skin crawled. Jason's hand went to his jacket, not in a casual way. His movements were deliberate, trained. My chest tightened. I wanted to run. but fear rooted me in place. "You shouldn't be here, Alec," Jason said finally, his voice low but steady. "This isn't safe," finally, his voice low but steady. "This isn't safe." My throat went dry. "What is this? What's happening?" I asked, my voice trembling. Before he could answer, another figure stepped forward from the shadows. A woman, her face cold and unreadable. "It's too late," she said. "She's part of it now." That sentence pierced me. Part of it? What did she mean? My mind spiraled with questions. But before I could ask them, the group moved together, surrounding me. I stepped back instinctively, but Jason's hand shot out, gripping my arm firmly. "Stay close," he said. His voice was different now, hard. Protective, like someone who had seen too much to be afraid. And then, everything exploded. A sound like a gunshot echoed in the darkness. The group scattered instantly, shouting. I screamed, clutching Jason's arm. We ran. Through trees, over fences, my breath ragged, my heart pounding in my ears. Behind us, the night filled with noise, shouts, footsteps, something mechanical humming. We didn't stop until we reached an alley several blocks away. Jason pulled me against him, his body tense. My chest was burning, my mind spinning. What was that? I gasped, trying to catch my breath. Jason didn't answer. He just looked at me, his expression unreadable. Then he whispered, Alec, you're in deeper than you realize. And now, they know you. I stared at him, my whole body trembling. Fear, confusion, and something else. Something darker filled me. That night, I realized this wasn't about bullies anymore. This wasn't about protecting me from something small. Whatever Jason was involved in, it was dangerous, deadly, and I was caught right in the middle of it. Because now, there was no going back. We stayed in that alley for what felt like hours. My chest was still tight, my legs weak. Jason didn't speak much, just kept scanning the shadows, his body stiff, as if expecting someone to appear at any second. I wanted answers. I wanted to know what was going on, but I was terrified of what those answers might be. Finally, he broke the silence. Alec, you need to know the truth. His voice was low, almost shaking. I haven't been honest with you. Not about who I am. Not about why I'm here. I looked at him, confused, afraid. What are you talking about? My voice cracked. Jason took a deep breath. I'm not just your brother's friend. I'm part of something dangerous. They call us special forces people trained for situations no one should ever see. And Alec, what happened tonight wasn't random. They've been watching us. Watching you. My stomach dropped. Watching me? Why? His eyes softened for just a moment before hardening again. Because you saw something you shouldn't have, and they can't risk you telling anyone. The weight of his words hit me like a punch. I wanted to scream, to run, but my body was frozen. Jason, what does that mean? Are they going to hurt me? Before he could answer, a noise came from the end of the alley. A low, mechanical hum. The kind that crawls under your skin. Jason's grip on my arm tightened. We don't have much time. He pulled me deeper into the shadows, and we moved quickly, silently, like prey escaping a predator. My mind raced, everything felt unreal. This was no longer about bullies or revenge. This was something much bigger, something I didn't understand. We stopped in a hidden doorway, just wide enough for us to slip inside. Jason pulled a small device from his pocket and pressed a button. A faint light glowed, and a map appeared. They're closing in, he said. If we don't move now, they'll find you. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. "Jason, what's going to happen to me?" I whispered. He looked at me, his expression unreadable. "You have two choices. You can run and hide, but they'll never stop looking. Or you can trust me. I'll keep you safe, but it will cost everything." A silence fell between us. My whole body trembled. Not just from fear, but from the weight of what he was saying. I knew there was no turning back now. Jason stepped closer. His hand covered mine, and for a moment, I felt the safety I'd been longing for. But deep down, I knew he couldn't promise me peace, only survival. Then we moved, fast, into the unknown. The air was heavy with danger, and every step I took felt like I was walking toward the end of something. Maybe my old life, or maybe something far worse. As we disappeared into the night, I couldn't stop asking myself the same question: how much would I lose to stay alive? And in my heart, I knew one thing for certain: my life would never be the same again. Because some truths aren't meant to be hidden, and some stories demand to be told.